Welcome to the Podkey summary of McGill University. McGill is one of those institutions that looks almost impossibly polished from a distance. Global rankings, Nobel winners, famous alumni, a huge research footprint. And then the closer you get, the more complicated it becomes, with a founding tied to slavery, decades of exclusion, fierce language politics, and a constant struggle to keep an old, ambitious university financially and physically standing. So this is the McGill story in full scale. Prestige, reach, and a lot of unresolved history living in the same place. McGill begins in 1821 with a royal charter and a bequest from James McGill, and from that starting point, it grew from a basically dormant college into one of Canada's defining research universities. That founding story also comes with a moral stain that can't be brushed aside. James McGill was a slave owner, and his household enslaved at least 5 Black and Indigenous people. Even early on, the university's influence spread far beyond Montreal. Institutions linked to McGill's orbit in British Columbia eventually became UBC and the University of Victoria, and McGill alumni and faculty helped build places like Johns Hopkins Medical School and the University of Alberta. Part of what makes McGill stand out is that it has the reputation of a giant institution while sitting inside a relatively compact Canadian system. It's one of only 2 members of the Association of American Universities outside the U.S., and the only Canadian university in the World Economic Forum's Global University Leaders Forum. The research record is loaded. 15 Nobel laureates, 149 Rhodes Scholars, a Turing Award winner, and work connected to discoveries like radon and artificial cells, plus major advances in neuroscience, immunology, and genetics. In the 2026 QS rankings, McGill placed first in Canada and 27th globally, while keeping a student-faculty ratio around 16:1, which helps explain why it manages to feel both globally visible and still somewhat navigable by actual humans. Prestige doesn't cancel history, and McGill has some deeply serious chapters here. From the 1920s into the late 1960s, the university imposed quotas that restricted Jewish students in medicine and law, with the Jewish student population capped at as much as 10%. Then there's the Allen Memorial Institute and the CIA-linked brainwashing scandal. Donald Hebb conducted voluntary sensory deprivation research, but Donald Ewan Cameron went much further, subjecting patients to prolonged isolation, repeated electroconvulsive therapy, drugging, and amnesia-inducing procedures without consent. In 2025, a class action lawsuit over those experiments was certified against McGill and the Canadian government. Claims against the U.S. government had already been dismissed in 2023 on sovereign immunity grounds. McGill's place in Quebec has always involved language politics, and that's not some side issue. It's central to how the university is understood. It remains one of Quebec's 3 English-language universities, even though it operates in a predominantly French-speaking province. There's some institutional flexibility built in. Students can generally submit graded work in either English or French, and the law faculty expects passive bilingualism. But the broader identity question has been contested for a long time. In 1969, the McGill Français movement demanded that the university become francophone, pro-worker, and aligned with Quebec nationalism. Most students and faculty opposed that, and McGill stayed English in identity. The issue is still alive now. In 2024, Quebec introduced a requirement aimed at having 80% of enrolled students reach French proficiency by graduation, while francophone students make up roughly 1/5 of McGill's student body. One thing that's easy to miss if you only picture the downtown campus is how physically distributed McGill really is. There's the main campus at the foot of Mount Royal, the 650-hectare McDonald campus for agriculture and environmental work west of Montreal, and a French-language medical campus in Gatineau, serving students from the Outaouais region. The research map gets even wider. Canada's only tropical teaching and research facility in Barbados, an Arctic station on Axel Heiberg Island, a subarctic station in Shefferville, and the 10-square-kilometer Galt Nature Reserve. Its healthcare footprint is just as large, including the CA $1.6 billion McGill University Health Center consolidation and redevelopment at the Glen site. For a university with this much status, McGill's finances tell a very modern higher ed story. Big assets, big campaigns, and big strain. Its endowment was about $39 billion in 2022 and supplied roughly 10% of annual operating revenue, which is significant, but not enough to make the hard stuff disappear. A 2016 report estimated deferred maintenance at $1.3 billion, and 73% of buildings were judged to be in poor or very poor condition. That is a very expensive draft coming through a very old window. Fundraising has scaled up dramatically, from the CA $750 million campaign McGill goal in 2007 to more than the CA $1 billion raised by 2013, and then the CA $2 billion made by McGill campaign launched in 2019. A CA $200 million gift created the McCall-MacBain Scholarships, at the time the largest single philanthropic gift to a Canadian university, which says a lot about how much top-tier fundraising now shapes who gets recruited and what gets built. McGill is also operating at a big scale academically, with nearly 40,000 students and more than 300 fields of study across arts, science, medicine, engineering, management, education, and more. Its student body is unusually international by Canadian standards. More than 10,000 foreign students from over 150 countries. And in one reported period, international students made up more than 27% of enrollment. At the same time, admission is highly selective. Many out-of-Quebec undergrads come in with median entering grades around 93 to 94%, and the 2024 medical entering class posted a 3.89 GPA median and a 35.69 Quebec CGPR score median. So McGill is trying to be broad in reach and very narrow at the gate, which is a balancing act universities love to market and applicants experience a little more personally. The alumni list is one of those where you almost have to stop yourself from just reading names for 5 minutes. McGill counts 3 Canadian prime ministers, a governor general, 4 Pulitzer winners, 5 Canadian astronauts, James Naismith, Leonard Cohen, William Shatner, Yoshua Bengio, and Julie Payette among its alumni. Its influence also shows up in leadership pipelines. McGill-trained figures have gone on to lead institutions, including Princeton, Stanford, the University of Michigan, the University of Alberta, and UBC. And on campus, that culture feeds into a dense student life, with more than 250 student-run clubs, independent media, long-running publications, a campus radio station, and a Greek system that involves roughly 2% of students. McGill ends up looking like a concentrated version of the modern university itself, globally ambitious, historically burdened, politically situated, and constantly trying to reconcile excellence with the costs of how it got there. It's a place with real intellectual gravity and a lot of unfinished business, which, honestly, is probably why it stays so interesting. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.